You still rocking? You still rocking R. Kelly, right?
Chill. Hold up.
It's a question. I'm asking a question.
It's not like I just automatically go throw on happy people when I'm happy or nothing like that. But
you ain't pulling up the TP2.com. You ain't searching that joint, pulling it up.
If I'm somewhere and Ignition remix come on,
you getting hot.
I'm not mad. I'm not be like, yo, turn that shit off. You know what I'm saying? Or if Bill Cosby special come on, or the Cosby Show, I'm not like, yo, turn that shit off. Me personally, and maybe I'm a little messed up, right? Because I can, or at least conveniently, separate the artist, the art.
Well, will you listen to P. Diddy? Or it's too new? Listen to Diddy, or it's too new.
I'm good on all bad. I don't care if they find Diddy the most horrendous shit in the world. I'm still listening to Big. I'm still banging all that shit. You know what I mean? I'm not a Diddy fan.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. It's like Diddy got a couple like, little good, features on other people's songs, but Diddy is not really the artist. He tried to step into the artist's shoes where like R. Kelly is the artist. You know what I mean? He got bangers for days, even like, did y'all get into the Residuals challenge that he did over the phone?
Yeah.
Where's his money? Where's his money?
No, we ain't talking about it. We ain't talking about it.
Hold up. You know where his money at. He never get none of that.
Well, hey, in the Residuals, he was dropping that tea.
The victims, that's where the money is at. That's where all that, at least that's what I have to assume. I have to assume that any money that he is owed for any residuals is still paying out legal fees, restitution, and victims. I don't know how much money that is. But
I don't know either, because I think some of them victims not victims.
Don't start victim shaming, Belle.
No, I'm not victim shaming.
I'm glad it's you and not us. Go ahead.
Okay. What I'm saying is
for
the victims, like
whoa. R. Kelly victims are young bucks. Chill on the hoes be hoes. Right?
My thing is this,
young
right?
Hoes going to young hoe, I guess, but
they be hoeing at different ages. But is the victim who is the first to blame, right? I'm not going to drop my minor child off at a hotel to do an audition for anybody, or a grown man, and leave my minor child there for a few weeks. How long does it take? How long does it take to sing a song?
So listen, I was going to ask you, I was going to say, Belle, what about if it was back then, right? Like R. Kelly at the height of his career or whatever. But you are a different type of woman, right? I expect you to understand sexual predators and things like that, even back then, where you definitely, like, I wouldn't drop my daughter off. I mean, I would stay there. If my daughter had an opportunity,
right,
then I gotta stay, kind of like Lotto with his dad on the show, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. But
I got a question. So at what year did it become unacceptable for old niggas to mess with young chicks?
Under 18, you mean?
No. I'm talking about the year in the calendar. Like, because
no, I know.
I graduated in 97 and that shit was prevalent then.
It's always been.
Right. What year did it become, let's pull this back? Let's pull this curtain back.
It was before Me Too. I'm trying to think. It had to be like some type of case with a young girl.
Was it R. Kelly? Did he
no
put a major spotlight on it?
I think R. Kelly
his sex tape and the chick.
Well, I mean, we knew when we found out that he married Aaliyah that nigga was, you know what I'm saying? Like, we knew when we found out that they were married. That was crazy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay? And we all thought it was crazy.
And age ain't nothing but a number had a whole different meaning.
Exactly. And then we also knew, let's say around maybe just 98, 99, when the video came out where he had the John peeing on the paper.
Well, at that point.
So back to my original question, right? Back to my original question.
At what point?
I was born in 79, right? Mm-hmm. So it was cool with my mom and dad. I'm just saying. I mean, my mom and dad is 7 years apart, and they ain't meeting their 20s.
That's different, Reggie.
Wait. No, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking, like, at what point did it become? Now, I feel like now, as an enlightened adult, I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was crazy, right? I always thought it was crazy. However, it was an acceptable activity, right? It was an acceptable activity. We might have looked at it like it was crazy, especially like even B gave the example of, one of his first high school, whatever, somebody in their 20s was taking it down and he felt some kind of way about it, right? Yeah. So at what point? Because it was, the 80s, 90s, because even R. Kelly in 93, Aaliyah, it ain't ruining.
No, I think
we knew about it, but we ain't look too sideways. You might have been like, man, what the fuck was up with that? But we wasn't like.
I think that it became a thing when the person won the first lawsuit, and that's what we have to look at. When it became monetary value attached to it, that's when it became a outrage, right?
Ooh, that's interesting.
No,
because it's true.
Right.
So now the outrage is monetized now.
Whoa.
And now you can get something for it.
Right. Because look at Elvis. Let's talk. Elvis' wife was a minor.
Right. Yeah.
He was 14 when he married her.
Right.
There was no outrage then.
There are a lot of cases of older men marrying and dating younger women. Karl Malone is a perfect example of that, right? I don't think it was accepted probably 70s and back. All right. I think it started to change in the 80s because of kidnappings and the high rate of children being kidnapped and things like that. I think it might have started to change a little bit. Going into the 90s with us in high school, we saw it. We talked about this. We saw the old heads coming up to the school, for the young Johns. And in some cases, some of our families has an uncle or a cousin that, was a little too handsy with the young Johns. Some of us know dudes that prefer young Johns. Mm-hmm. We always felt like those, because they couldn't deal with people their own age, it's easier to get somebody that's younger. You can manipulate them or whatever like that. Right. But to Reggie's point, I think, like Belle said, probably once it became monetized and in the public eye, almost like a cry of rape. Once that accusation, you was able to monetize that, all bets are off at this point.
Right.
It starts to spiral. That's a very interesting take on that. I never thought of that. Because I guess in the hood is no. You might want to call the law on somebody, but in the hood you ain't suing.
Right.
So what you gonna do besides, I don't know, whoop his ass, I guess, or ground her?
Because if you look up statutory rape, the age limit has always been there. It's always been there, and that law has always been broken.
Facts.
But it's who got the money that you could benefit from.
Real time.
Well, you ask R. Kelly, he gonna say, "What state we in?" Massachusetts 15. Illinois is 17. What state? How young?
Listen, Robert Kelly let me down. The R, on the other hand, he coming with another album.
Stand firm. Them parents let their kids down first.
So do you think that they do you think they did it? Do you think they did it because they knew they could potentially get money from it?
Some of them, yes.
So, yes, but I don't think that they were thinking about legally suing. I think that they was pimping their kids out and thinking that they was going to get put on and get a contract and get a check off of that. I think that's the entertainment money route they was going. I don't think they was going judicial. But it wasn't until later where the judicial, like I said, wherever it started being monetized, that's why the Me Too movement took off the way it did. You know what I mean? You have these people, look at Puffy. Now we're talking, I'm not talking about any, well, yeah, maybe some of the minors. If you snuck into a Puffy party, right, as a minor and saw what was going down and didn't try to get your ass up out of there and partake, then I think like that burden is on you because you chose to stay. You probably didn't think it was going to go all the way left, but some things you consented to, and now you want to be paid for what you consented to.
So you're talking about putting some of the responsibility on the person themselves.
Yes, it's called a mitigating factor, and it's like, what did you do?
Yes. So I think legally the law is never going to say that a child has a child has the capacity to consent, right? They're never going to say that. However, I do think that there are mitigating circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I think that and I don't know about the 90s, definitely not the 90s, right? But I know now, you walk through a mall, you don't have no idea how old any of these women are.
You don't.
You don't, and we ain't talking about like, all right, I get your number, we talk and we chat for a couple of weeks, this and that. Then you should be able to decipher a roundabout age of a person, right? You have a general conversation. I'm going to work. Where you going? I'm going to science class. It's a whole different conversation.
Right.
But at a party, at the mall, you couldn't guess how old a woman is. You couldn't guess you could guess wrong for a 40-year-old thinking that she's 20. Like we like seriously, like especially black people. Like black don't crack.
Right.
Like I'm sure, and I'm not aging you rebellious, but I'm sure people have no idea how old you are. No idea how old you are. You get the spectrum. You get the spectrum. Men a little different. We all gray. We know we a certain age, right?
But this is the reason why I kind of let this grow in a little bit. Because, like without this,
you tired of the 20-year-olds.
Right. Like I'm not trying to
Like, don't get it fucked up.
Right.
Right. Exactly. So that could be considered a mitigating factor, right? You're in a party and everybody in this party is supposed to be over 21. How you get in here? Right. However, like I said, the law doesn't necessarily look at that. Law doesn't necessarily look at that. So it's some people say we living in a rape culture where the things that were acceptable years ago are just now everything's an essay.
They called it trains back in the day.
Yeah, it's rape now.
That's rape. That was rape then, to some degree. It was gang rape.
If it was forced, it was rape, right? But what if it was right. Exactly.
Right. Typically after the second or third boy, it probably was forced. I've never been a part of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not.
Thank God.
Praise the Lord.
I know that went down.